I had the urge to paint the human figure all of a sudden. I was in my 40s, and I hadn't started painting until I was almost 21. Since the late 70s, I had fancied myself a landscape painter and a painter of things that hang around on landscapes. If my pictures could sound like music, I'd want them to sound psychedelic but real, like early country music, like what the Byrds did when I saw them in my first concert with my cousin Sambo back in Tulsa in 1969. Because my most psychedelic experiences have not been about fireworks and pinwheels, but about stillness. Like the stillness at twilight when animals come out into the open, and when my brain waves are nice and flat is when things come out. So in the studio, when something shows up like a figure, it needs to be dealt with because that's the only way I know why it's there. One time horses showed up. I didn't know shit about horses, except they were always around in East Tulsa. So when I painted the first one in my New York studio, it resonated with me as if it were a symbol of what made me different from the 8 million people outside. I remember thinking in the 80s how strange the 80s looked, and how it made me feel like I was the only one who ever lived through the 70s. It was like of all the 8 million people in New York, no one remembered the plainness of culture before disco, or knew of the stillness and the possibility of an ethereal experience that I knew outside of New York. So after being in New York for about 20 years, all of a sudden, I had the urge to paint the human figure. But I put it off for a while before I tore into it, figuring they would tell me why they were there. Think Ouija board. I painted the figures for about 6 weeks until I came to a stopping place. I put them all out, a dozen or so paintings on canvas and 30 on paper. They all looked alike. They were all the same girl with the round face called Kay. Kay, my first big love. The one who asked me to beat her daddy up. The one who slammed my car door when I wouldn't come in. And I watched her walk up the steps and into eternity.